Dragon's Dogma 2 has recently been bombarded on Steam by negative reviews, despite causing a lot of initial excitement. If you've been avoiding the black hole of the internet lately, then perhaps you haven't heard about the plague of performance issues and microtransactions. Stick around until the end of the video where I give a list of nice to knows and go through the settings I have to use to make the game run functionally. I'm 8 hours into the game now, so I'm going to talk about my experiences so far. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
I'll keep the money and you can have the role.
Let's start on a positive note. What are this game's saving graces? For starters, it looks pretty good. Even when having to turn a lot of settings down to make it run properly, more on that later, it's still a very aesthetically pleasing game. In addition to being pretty, the music is pleasant. Does it shatter expectations? No, but it has a solid fantasy feel. Doesn't barge its way through and cause distraction, but makes itself known when the occasion calls for it. The game, despite its flaws, is fun to play. The combat is relatively smooth, although I would have loved a dodge button. The world you traverse is full of things to find and loot and fight, and your pawns, or companions, keep things more interesting by offering tidbits of information along the way, or offering to guide you to your next quest. Be careful with this though. A pawn named Pi led me on a wild goose chase. You know who you are. This game is not optimized for performance. I don't have the most powerful rig, but my specs are well above the recommended, so I expected to have a similar experience to Baldur's Gate 3. Be able to play at high settings, with DLSS enabled at balanced mode. Boy was I wrong. I'll give you all the individual settings at the end, but the TLDR version is that I had to turn everything down to low quality and cap my frame rate at 60 FPS, and I still regularly dip into the 40s while in NPC-heavy areas. Turns out NPCs like to suck up all your CPU's power. Some have resorted to going on murder sprees to make the game run smoother. I'm hoping for a patch soon, but I've managed to get things functional in the meantime. Microtransactions, that dirty word that keeps slipping its way into our games. Now this topic has already been covered by much better YouTubers than I, check out Rurikon and Wolfheart FPS, so all I can really do is add my opinion. So here goes. Microtransactions are a blight on any game, and their addition was completely pointless and just created a bunch of bad PR. But, don't click off the video yet, you can play the game fine without them. I cannot stress enough how much I am against microtransactions, but at the end of the day, I didn't even know they existed until other folks on YouTube started talking about it. Here's why. The microtransactions don't show up in stores inside the game or a special menu for them. They're on the Steam store page. Once I pre-ordered the game, I had no reason to go back to that page, and when I pre-ordered it, the microtransactions weren't there yet. Even if I had seen them, I probably would have mistaken them for DLC because that's how they're listed. Now this was a scuzzy move from Capcom, no doubt about it. Do yourself a favor and leave it alone. Almost everything listed in that DLC, and it's literally labeled that way, is available for purchase in the game with in-game currency. It's pointless. And the one item that isn't available for purchase in-game is actual DLC. It's game music. Based on the way it's set up on the Steam page, it does appear that you can only purchase these items once. So not as predatory as most microtransactions, but still bad. I'm not going to let this stop me from playing the game because A, I already bought it, B, I'm having fun with it, and C, you can basically ignore its existence. If you don't want to purchase or play the game because of it, that is totally your right. But if this was a game you were really looking forward to, I wouldn't let this be the reason you don't get it. Send Capcom a message by refusing to pay for any of this extra crap that is completely unnecessary. Here's some good to know tidbits that I picked up. Pawns don't level up with you, except for your main pawn. That's the one you created early in the game at the first Riftstone. So make sure to regularly swap out your other two pawns. Set quests for your main pawn, so that when other players take him or her for a spin, there are goals for your pawn to work towards. It's also courteous to provide a reward for the quest. Be prepared to run into a crapload of random fights when traversing the world, and get used to running. You will encounter boss-like monsters at random times when you're underleveled, already hurting from a different fight, ill-equipped. You will need to develop a sense of when it's time to head for the hills. Watch your weight capacity. It impacts the speed your character moves at. If you're anything like me, you loot and gather everything. Make sure to take pauses here and there, and to share the love between yourself and the pawns to balance out the weight, and check in at inns whenever possible to put things into storage that you don't need on you. Speaking of inns, make sure to unlock and update skills while there. You can do so for yourself and your main pawn. Have no sense of direction like me? Although Dragon's Dogma 2 doesn't have dotted lines on the map to guide you to your destination, or magical wispy lines or yellow paint markers, there is a map and a mini-map, and you will get general quest markers. Also, if you've already revealed a part of the map and just need to travel back to a particular place, such as a town, you can place your own marker on the map. It will help. Don't forget about the food in your inventory. It goes bad over time. However, it can still be sold, or sometimes even used, in its rotten state, so don't throw it out. Moving from first impressions onto how the hell do you get this game to function. I can't guarantee this will work for you, but it's worth a shot. Here are the settings that I use. Starting down at refresh rate, my monitor can go up to 144 Hz, but I am capping it at 60, as well as capping the frame rate at 60. VSync is on, dynamic resolution off, DLSS is on performance mode. There is an ultra performance mode as well. DLSS NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency is off. Upscale sharpness I kept at the default, which is this line right here. Rendering mode progressive, I don't actually think you can change this one. Same with image quality. Ray tracing is off. Ambient occlusion is SDFAO. Anti-aliasing, didn't do anything here, it's just a standard TAA. Screen space reflections are on. I do recommend keeping this one on if possible. The game looked pretty crappy with it off. Mesh quality is low. Texture filtering is low. Texture quality low. Grass and tree quality low. Resource intense effects low. Shadow quality low. Shadow cache is on. Contact shadows on. Motion blur off. Bloom off. Depth of field on. Lens flare on. Lens distortion on, plus chromatic aberration is the default. Subsurface scattering on, another one I recommend keeping on if you can. Game doesn't look so hot without it. And motion quality low. This is what I had to do to get the game to stop stuttering. Even with the settings higher, I was still sometimes reaching 60 FPS, but it kept jittering and stuttering, and it was just giving me a headache to look at. It wasn't fun to play. So if you're having that issue, I recommend trying these settings and see if it works for you. Have more tips to share? Found other setting options to make the game run smoother? Share them in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to help us get to 1K. Thanks for watching.